Institutional abuse, Northern Ireland style. Former residents demand to be heard.
The knuckles, I mean, getting the knuckle like that and right on your back or on your head.
While thousands in the Irish Republic get apologies and compensation, nothing is an offer for people on this side of the border.
Northern Ireland, little Northern Ireland, who's listening? Eh? Who's listening?
I think we've just been forgotten about. It's all been about down the south, but as if we haven't existed up here.
These abuse allegations for the first time in Northern Ireland centre on an order of nuns. Once a cornerstone of childcare here, the Nazareth sisters are at the heart of child cruelty allegations.
I would say, yeah, I was born in the prison. You know, and she said, what do you mean? I said, well, I was born in an orphanage, so that it felt like a prison to us.
A nun got me by the hair and pushed my head down into the, you know, the orange salt sheets.
Tonight, what really happened behind the walls of the Nazareth homes?
Do you accept that there was widespread physical and emotional abuse in the homes at that period?
Hi, could I ask for your signature, please, just to help us out? It's about the abuse that was taking place in the house.
Margaret McGuckin wants an inquiry here like the Ryan Commission in the Republic, which confirmed that abuse was endemic in homes run by Catholic religious orders. She knows that if she'd been in a Nazareth home in the south, she could have applied to the Irish Redress Scheme and got a hearing.
We should be heard as well. You know, our voices need to be heard.
Margaret, her sister and brothers were all with the Nazareth sisters in Belfast.
They didn't allow us to see each other. But I can remember my sister saying to me just recently, even and before, you know, that she used to try to come and see me through the railings. You know, when I was crying all the time, she used to try and reach out, and the nuns trailed her away. It was the nuns that trailed her away.
Margaret says she remembers beatings, being dragged by the hair, fear, but mostly she remembers the little child she was.
I know when I've looked at a photo of me recently, and the sad I looked in that photo, I actually don't even say it's me. It's that child, you know, who I pity and feel for. I just wish I could cuddle that girl now, that little girl now.
Marie-Therese Rogers Maloney has spent most of her adult life trying to understand how she ended up spending all her youth in the Nazareth House Children's Home in Belfast.
Didn't realise that looking at this book would tell you so much. This is where my search began.
She pores over old records from the home.
It's a window into the past and the future. I left that orphanage 17 and a half years of age with not even a piece of paper to say, your name's Marie-Therese Rogers. It was just on your way.
Although Marie-Therese's mother was alive, she says her existence was denied by the nuns.
As a child, I remember some of the new children, we used to call them, new girls, and their mummies or their daddies would come up, and I remember one day saying, please, where's my mommy? Ah, silly Marie, no mommy. God, is there no humanity in them? I wouldn't do it to anybody.
In 1951, when Marie-Therese was placed in care, there were around 1,000 children like her in various charitable institutions.
You could hear people saying, now, if you're a bad girl or a bad boy, you'll be in the home of those bad ones. Society didn't care.
The Sisters of Nazareth dominated the Catholic care sector, with 5 homes here in Belfast, Derry and Portadown. The order has a worldwide presence, but their roots are in London, Hammersmith, where their headquarters are today, the Mother House. This is also where their first children's home opened more than 150 years ago. The order began its work with a mission statement. It was to see the divine infant in the little ones and to try to love them very much for his sake. This is the face the order presented to the world in the 1950s when cameras visited one of their homes in Scotland. A children's wonderland. But the people we've spoken to say that's just about as far from the reality of their lives and homes here as it is possible to imagine.
And for them it's to put the what of Jesus in you? No. You know, I just felt like a monster, an unwanted alien, you know. And it's only lately I'm trying to pick my life up. You know, for what the way they displayed. There was no affection in there whatsoever. You know, it was just coldness and darkness.
Deirdre O'Donoghue's lived in England for decades, but spent most of her childhood with the Nazareth sisters in Belfast. She remembers once fleeing the home and the punishment a nun dealt her as a result.
She dragged me all the way through the convent, up 3 flights of stairs. She unlocked the keys that were next to the rosary beads, opened that door and pushed me in. She beat me black and blue with a stick that resembled a walking stick. And while she was doing that, I had to repeat, "Sorry, sister, I won't do it again, sister." Then I was left locked in that room. I couldn't tell you how long for. But she kept coming back and beating me some more.
Received a letter of apology from the... Deirdre is on a mission for herself and others. She wants a straight-up apology. She met the nuns last year. Later, she got a letter by recorded delivery from the head of the order.
Well, this is dated December 08. I am sorry for anything that you feel was done to you by the Sisters of Nazareth that may have caused you suffering or anguish. It was good that Sister Patricia and I were able to meet you and your son so that we could be aware firsthand of your story. Certainly, we were struck by the clear pain you feel in recalling those years. It is a matter of profound regret to the sisters and to me that your time with us has left you with those painful memories.
As far as you're concerned, is that actually an apology?
They're sorry for the way I feel. They're not saying they're sorry for, you know, what was done to me. It could have been worded better. Yeah, and I was happy to get it, but the more I think about it now, it's not worth the paper it's written on. I might as well just go and put it in the bathroom.
What do you want the nuns to do for you?
To stand up and admit it.
But this isn't as simple as it might appear. The sisters, despite many allegations of abuse worldwide, have never publicly admitted responsibility. We understand it's because they fear it could lead to very expensive lawsuits. The Nazareth sisters are one among a total of 18 orders that are contributing to the redress board in the Republic. The orders argue that between them, the most they could afford to pay was £120 million. But we've discovered that the Nazareth sisters, for one, are a very wealthy order. They now run care homes for the elderly like this one in Belfast. I can't value all their assets worldwide, but I do have tax returns for America and the UK. In London, a forensic accountant has examined them for us.
In the UK accounts for 2008, last ones we have, about £86 million. In the United States, across 4 organisations, another £20 million.
Do they have a lot of cash?
In the UK, certainly they've got about £42 million spread across investments, and about 30 of that, 30 million would be represented by cash.
The Belfast Girls' Home is gone now, bulldozed for upmarket apartments. In fact, all the homes here are now closed, like Termanbacca in Derry. But 14,000 people pass through the Nazareth system in Northern Ireland, out of sight and out of mind of the rest of us. Derry man John McCourt spent 10 years in Termanbacca. He's now intent on getting answers for what happened to him and others in the home.
I was given a number 10. John McCourt. didn't exist anymore. Number 10 was there now. I've been back a couple of times, and the last time I was up there, I think I stayed about 5 minutes. And it just had that sense about it. Whatever was there is still there. And it wasn't about looking after children. It was about physically making children toe the line. And some of the cruelty that went on, in particularly the institution that I was in, you know, could not have gone unobserved. I remember one time standing in a line formed for some other silly reason, whatever. And next thing I knew, a nun literally pulled a towel reel, pulled the towel off the towel reel, and with the reel itself, which is as thick as a brush shaft and about 2 foot long, just whipped it that fast, professionally almost, right down on my skull. I collapsed on the ground, was told to get up, couldn't get up, and was beaten again and again with the roller of the towel.
He says he spent weeks in hospital afterwards. Almost 50 years later, he wants acknowledgement that he lived with a regime that was brutal and wrong.
The problem with it is that for me and for a lot of guys, and a lot of girls as well, is that these aren't memories. These are living with us every day. They are part of who we are, so they're not memories. These are living parts of what we are.
Another former Termanbacca resident, Brian Doherty, now runs marathons, 162 of them. He's also compiled a history of the home he was put into at birth.
I thought I was put in there for punishment. I always wondered, why has my mum come for me? Why hasn't my dad come for me? They never told me anything about that. I used to ask about my mum and dad. You know, they never answered me. I mean, I just thought, you know, who are we? What are we doing in here? Haven't we got a mum and dad, any of us?
Well, it's amazing, like we're in 2 different dormitories, yours and Joseph's.
Tony Hanna and John Leatham have rarely met since they were children, but between them they spent 24 years in the care of the Nazareth sisters. They tell of routine beatings, but it is the punishment meted out for bedwetting that stayed with them.
If you wet the bed, you were put into the tumble dryer. I mean, it sounds so far-fetched. There was this big tumble dryer, massive tumble dryer. Now, they'd only put you in it for a couple of seconds, but we knew, like, I mean, none of us would have wanted to get into it.
I would say it was about 5 foot, 4 or 5 foot length. And they'd open the big doors up, big sliding doors, and one time I remember myself being put in, but it was not switched on.
But you were put into this
machine?
Put
literally into it. It was very scary. And immediately would open the door, but they wouldn't switch it on, but they said that's what they would do to you if you went to bed again.
Do you think people will believe your story?
It's a hard story. It's hard to believe what's happened, not unless a person went through it themselves. You know, and I'll be quite honest with you, if people believe me or not, it doesn't matter.
The question is, will the Sisters of Nazareth admit it? Professor Deirdre Heenan has studied the childcare of this period.
They were put into a harsh regime, harsh physical regime, but also there was emotional deprivation. There was no sign of love, it was coldness. They were repeatedly told they were worthless, they were a manifestation of the sins of their parents, and they would have to pay for the sins of their parents.
A government report points out that this was a time when even some social workers worried that immorality could be a genetic condition.
You know, we were sinners. Some of us, were literally, you know, were the spawn of evil, as far as some of the nuns were concerned. You know, we didn't belong on the earth, let alone in a home. You know, but that's where we were, and their duty to us was to care for us.
Today, no one disputes that there wasn't enough staff to run the homes properly. Control and order were the bywords. The bathing ritual set the tone. The people we've spoken to say Jay's fluid was used routinely on them. It's a disinfectant so strong protective clothing is needed if using it.
Bath times, more like a sheet dip than a bath, with Jay's fluid gone into it.
It was just like as if you were an animal, you know, disinfectant. And now I know how strong that disinfectant is, and it's lethal, and it shouldn't be used in human bodies. you know, but that was used on us as children. What did they think we were? Animals?
Everything that they were doing would have been in the name of religion. So, for example, we're trying to beat the devil out of you, we're trying to cleanse your soul, we're trying to save your soul. And the whole idea behind the religious orders would have been that this is actually for your own good.
Some children were placed in the homes by the local welfare authority, others by relatives. Some appear to have been dumped at the door.
I'm not sure of the whole circumstances, but my older sister said that my mother left us outside the convent with a letter and she had to ring the bell to go in.
Frances Riley has one allegation of physical abuse which is truly horrendous. It happened after a nun locked her in a room as punishment.
She left the storeroom and locked me in. It went to dark and light. And desperate to go to the toilet, I ended up going to the toilet on the floor, ended up wetting myself. And when she got back, she just got me by the hair. She just dragged my face down into it, rubbed all my face into it.
Into your urine?
Into the urine in the floor. Called me all the dirty bitches under the sun. You dirty, dirty bitch, you child of the devil, you. And I got more beatings. And then she went off and I had to clean it, obviously, with Jay's fluid and clean it all up. And then there was a bath run of Jay's fluid and I had to get into that. And then it was just horrendous. I got pushed over in the bath. She got a deck scrubber, which we use for scrubbing the corridors, which is like a really hard scrubbing brush. And she started scrubbing me in my private areas with that until like the skin was coming off me.
Frances Riley sued the order. The case was settled out of court last year, but without any admission of liability. The state also had a duty of care which it failed, even though responsibility for what happened in the Nazareth homes lay with the nuns. The system for inspection in Northern Ireland was poorly resourced, thinly spread across almost 50 different children's homes.
We know that the inspection regime was superficial, that it didn't detect either the nature or the extent of the abuse going on within these homes. You could argue, for example, that the inspectors were in some way complicit with the adults running and administering these homes. They didn't look for various types of evidence, but these inspectors were very much of their day. Inspection wasn't seen to be a top priority, and they wouldn't have, for example, thought of asking the children themselves.
Proper childcare training might have prevented these abuses, but as late as 1985, the Nazareth sisters reported that they relied on the religious commitment of the nuns rather than childcare training. In fact, poor training and staff shortages were typical of most children's homes in Northern Ireland.
What we do know from the official report is that physical violence and emotional deprivation were endemic within these homes. They were deemed to be the norm. So I don't think we could single out the nuns and say that this only happened in this type of institution. This was endemic across the whole residential care setting.
In 1986, a government inquiry confirmed allegations of sexual abuse related to 9 residential centres, including one Nazareth home. What the inquiry failed to uncover was the activity of Ireland's most infamous paedophile, Father Brendan Smith. But we can reveal that he abused freely within the Nazareth system. He was a regular visitor to the homes and preyed on both girls and boys. He was convicted in one case, but we know of at least 3 other allegations. Frances Riley says she was struck by a nun when she told her that she'd been sexually assaulted by men outside the home. Tony Hanna, who says he was molested by older boys in the home, got no further when he spoke up.
I went one time to a nun in charge and said there, and she said, "Stop talking nonsense. Nobody would ever do that to you. Go ahead and don't ever talk like that again." I'm not too sure if she smacked me or not, but she told me I was talking nonsense. And I couldn't tell anybody ever since. I feel filthy, I felt really dirty and felt I was closed in my heart for a long time. I wasn't able to express it. And I haven't even expressed it to people that I know that come to visit me, friends of mine that I grew up with. I was actually too ashamed to express that, you know.
Tonight we meet 3 New Zealand women who say their lives have been blighted by childhood abuse at Christchurch's Nazareth house.
What is extraordinary is that all these allegations, covering the whole gamut of abuse, have also emerged on the other side of the planet, in New Zealand and Australia. In fact, for the last 10 years, the Nazareth sisters have faced dozens of lawsuits from former residents of its homes there. They have settled many of them, though never admitting liability. In the US, 5 former residents of their San Diego homes sued and received an average of $1.3 million. Again, there was no admission of liability. In Scotland, one nun, Sister Marie Doherty, was convicted of cruelty.
Slapped and force-fed girls at Nazareth House children's homes in Aberdeen and Midlothian.
Before the verdict, her lawyer had claimed she'd been the victim of a conspiracy. Here, former residents say they now want the nuns to face up to what happened in Northern Ireland.
I'm not looking anything out of it. I just want a better future and an apology for what happened.
Yeah, the institutions themselves can acknowledge the fact that it did happen, that it happened in institutions that they ran, and the fact that they failed to protect and care for some of the most vulnerable people in our society. Literally to turn around and say, I am sorry on behalf of the sisters that this happened.
5 days ago, the Sisters of Nazareth sent a representative to meet us, Sister Victoire. She said she had never worked with children, but was prepared to speak on the order's behalf.
What do you have to say to the people we've spoken to who allege widespread abuse in the homes in Northern Ireland through the 1950s and 1960s?
Well, I would like to say really that we regret any abuse, either physical abuse or emotional abuse, which any child has suffered in any of our houses, in any Nazareth house, and we apologise to them personally for that.
Do you accept that there was widespread physical and emotional abuse in the homes at that period?
Well, I actually wasn't there, but I have no reason not to believe these people.
Should it have happened?
Of course it shouldn't have happened, you know, that no one wants to see a child who suffers, and especially a child who would have to come into an institution and be deprived of parents, be deprived of the love of family, and all those sort of human things that a child would experience growing up.
Would it be fair to say that you are apologising for what happened to these
Of course I am apologising wholeheartedly, and I would like to apologise on behalf of the Sisters of Nazareth for any mistreatment of any child.
And you accept that it did happen?
Yes, I've no reason not to say that it didn't happen.
Why has it taken so long for the Sisters of Nazareth to make this apology?
In the north of Ireland, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
And generally?
Okay. I don't really know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I know that the sisters have apologised in maybe in more private areas or circumstances, but perhaps not publicly.
So why haven't the nuns apologised before? If it is about money, then our examination of their accounts shows that they are richer than they appear to be. Their fixed assets, the buildings, are recorded at their original cost price. This is allowed, but has serious implications for calculating their wealth.
If the order has obtained its properties over the last 150 years, some of them many years ago, it means that the acquisition price would have been a lot lower. And therefore, expressed in today's terms, they could be a multiple of the value in which they're shown in the accounts.
So the real value could be a lot more than £100 million?
It could be. It could be multiples of that figure.
By way of example, a survey of estate agents in Hammersmith has valued their headquarters at just under £40 million. The Sisters of Nazareth are not poor.
What has been the difficulty? I mean, it's been put to us that the difficulty is about legal issues, about financial matters, about the insurance company, you know, instructing you not to say sorry.
Yes, I suppose with so many legal issues nowadays attached to everything, I suppose there was a real caution on the part of the sisters, you know, to be careful, and perhaps they were advised to do that as well. I don't really know personally about that, but they could have been advised regarding that, you know.
Would you accept that the appropriate response is what you were doing today, is to respond wholeheartedly?
Well, I would. This is why I'm here, actually, to say that we regret, deeply regret, any mistreatment of any child in our care, and we apologise to each of them because this has happened.
Sister Victoire said the order was happy to meet former residents and finance counselling. Her interview may or may not meet the demands of people we have spoken to. But what of the state's responsibility in all this?
The state clearly failed in its duty of care and is criminally negligent in this area.
The Republic has had the Ryan Commission and the Redress Board. 14,000 people applied to it, while other countries, including Canada, Australia and Scotland, have been queuing up to apologise. Here, nothing, not as much as a peep. In Scotland, a key review of institutional abuse there was led by Tom Shaw, formerly Northern Ireland's Chief Schools Inspector.
Based very much on what I saw in Scotland and what I learned about other, again, jurisdictions in other places, I think where there is evidence of abuse, while children were in the care of the state or placed in institutions by the state, it would be reasonable for the state to apologise to them.
Is that important?
I think it is important.
Why is it important?
Because it's part of the acknowledgement, it's part of the being believed, it's part of the changing of the culture, if you like, of our society, to acknowledge and include these people who have had such totally harmful experiences in the past.
It's just it's a petition just to get some recognition, as they did in the south.
The former residents will want to know that the Nazareth sisters also told us that they would cooperate with any government inquiry or redress process here. But everyone will have to wait a little longer for any clarity from government. Over a 3-month period, I spoke to the Department of Health, the Office of the First and Deputy First Minister and the Northern Ireland Office. But no one would accept any overall responsibility for this matter, for these people. Then yesterday, the Health Minister told us that he had written to his colleagues in the Executive and the NAO about the implications of establishing a Ryan-type commission in Northern Ireland. That's it for now. No apologies, at least not yet. Marie Therese met her father's family for the first time just 3 weeks ago. She's now looking to a happy future, but the past is never far away.
I remember the first time somebody hugged me and I literally froze. And I was in my 40s. I literally froze. I wasn't used to it. And I was just scared to be loved because I didn't know what it was. It was alien to me.
I think people have to recognise that things did happen in these places. Not to everybody, and not at the hands of everybody, but things happened in these places that destroyed lives.